Well, they're all socialists now. Democrats getting on board the Zohran Mamdani train. The smiling socialist making a final push before next week's election. And he says the government will save us all.
No New Yorker should ever be priced out of anything they need to survive. And we believed then, we believe today, we will believe tomorrow that it is government's job to deliver that dignity. Dignity, my friends, is another way of saying freedom.
Zohran's cheer squad was right next to him. Bernie Sanders hyping up free everything, and AOC saying, trust me, guys, we're not crazy.
We are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
New York must have a mayor who represents the working families of this city, not the billionaire class.
And other Democrats are starting to kiss the socialist ring. Hakeem Jeffries hopping on the bandwagon last minute. And Kathy Hochul was met with tax the rich chants at Mamdani's rally. Democratic whisperer Bill Maher says this election will define where the party goes.
This is not just New York that's on the ballot. I think the whole Democratic Party in the country is on the ballot. And the whole country will be looking at this race to see which way are the Democrats going to go. No, Andrew Cuomo may not be that exciting and that inspirational, but, you know, for a party that said we want to get back to normal, he's kind of normal.
All right, Dana, what is your response
Where do
to
I
the Mamdani rally?
Where do I begin? Okay, so a couple things is, one, you notice that Mamdani, either he feels very comfortable in that crowd or he feels like he's got a lock on the election because his tone was back to what his usual is. For a while now, I've been feeling like this guy is so empty, he can't really go further than one step into a question or an answer to a question because he doesn't actually know the answer. That crowd that they had, is there any other group of trio of Democrats that could pull together a crowd like this? And I have a feeling that these three will take it on the road, and their first stops will be South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Another thing is that AOC was playing all the Kamala hits, right? We had fascists, extremists, Jim Crow. They've got a well-oiled machine, and if you think about who's competing right now for the elections next week, Mamdani has Bernie and AOC in this crowd. And Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger couldn't pull a crowd like that. Mm-hmm. They are getting Obama to come out for them. They had to figure out that because they are not exciting the base, and the base is where it's at right now. One other thing. In this event, Mamdani goes after Cuomo for living in an $8,000 a month apartment. And now, okay, Cuomo's an adult. He has made money. He chooses to spend his money on the shelter that of his choice, while Mamdani and his wife he was born wealthy, she's even wealthier. And they choose to live in a rent-stabilized apartment. Yeah. This morning, I talked about how this race in New York matters to the country because I promise this is coming to a city near you. I talked about the Minneapolis mayor's race and then the Seattle mayor's race. I learned about this woman that's running out there as a progressive Mamdani type of person. Her name's Katie Wood, grew up upper middle class here in New York, takes the Greyhound bus all around the country. Where do I want to live? Okay, this is where I want to live. She chooses to live with her husband in a 600 square foot rental with their baby. That's her choice. And she goes after the diverse immigrant who pulled himself up by his bootstraps and worked his butt off and chose to buy a home at $1.4 million in a nice neighborhood in Seattle. And that guy is sitting there going, how can I be behind in this race? Wasn't I the one that you guys were championing? No, the new champions of the Democratic Party are the progressive left.
So, Jesse, you know, it's always the Democrat elite who usher in the communist socialist ideology that they think is going to help everybody, but really it's about controlling the population. And they have a whole stable of these candidates ready to go. The Democratic Socialists of America are very organized. They have a lot of funding, and they're ready for this test case to be over so they can then go out and put these candidates in Democratic primaries all over the country to finally take over the party, and then, of course, to take over the larger aspect of politics.
Yeah, so communism's here because liberalism failed. The liberals poured millions of people into New York City. And what did that do? Make everything expensive. It drives up rent. It drives up food. It drives up insurance. No wonder everything's so expensive. They imported the third world here. So then they loan shark these kids into degrees of like women's studies, so they can't even afford a small, expensive apartment to begin with. And so communists come in and they say the government is going to fix the problem that the government created. Mm-hmm. And then he says government handouts are freedom and dignity. Now, you've heard that from some of the worst tyrants in world history, but the people who went to college never took Econ 101, never took history, so they don't even know. They're so oblivious to this guy is going to come in and do this. And I say, part of me says, you guys kind of deserve it.
So, Greg, isn't he kind of like a Che Guevara Islamist?
That gives him too much credit. This guy graduated college with a degree in Africana studies. Africana.
Like Latinx?
I have no idea. All I know is he could very well be the mayor, and it's based on the politics of envy. That was a loud chant you heard there of tax the rich. The strategy is that's how you're going to pay for it. That's how you're going to get even. We're taking their money, and there's nothing we're all going to vote, and they're all going to pay. Mm-hmm. It is a spectacle that, I mean, if you're a businessman, a go-getter, a family, if you're here, you're going to think about leaving. If you're thinking about moving here, you should watch the tax the rich thing and say, I want to be rich. Do I really want to go there? Maybe I should go to New Jersey. I mean, it smells a little different, but they're not going to hang me in a park. What is your defense when you say I'm not crazy? It's because the stuff you say are crazy. When Zoran's talking about making bus fares free, have you ever seen what his argument is for that? He says it's because the box where you put the money, it makes the homeless people who come in feel very bad that they have to pay. So just remove the conflict that leads to violence against the bus driver. Just get rid of the bus fare, the toll box, and then all the stuff. That is the reasoning of a child. Well, how do you pay for how do you pay the income of whatever called the check? How do you pay the bus driver? Where does the money go? How do you do this? It doesn't make any sense. But they're saying, let's remove the cost because it makes the crook unhappy. Okay, well then why stop at the bus? Why not do the Apple store? Those AirPods are really expensive. Why doesn't he say to the people out there, we're going to pay, all those AirPods are going to be free. There's nothing Apple can do about it.
Well, I would vote for that.
Yeah, so would they, because they wouldn't think, wait, is that possible?
And then nobody will have anything. Harold, do you want to talk about the future of the Democratic Party?
So I would just remind everybody, as concerned as I am about this mayoral election here, and I will say, I was to Dana's point, I was shocked here at the end of this race. Here we are, a few days in the early voting. It appears that Mr. Mamdani has a pretty good lead. I would remind everybody, though, around this time, when the primary was being held, Mr. Cuomo had about an 8 to 10 point lead 12 days out and ended up losing the race. So this 10-point lead is certainly something that's surmountable. But he seems to be in a good position. I listened to him not only in that rally was a little different. I listened to some interviews of his and some speeches, some other presentations he's given Mr. Mamdani. He sounds decisively mad and divisive. Not uplifting, not unifying. I didn't hear any words. If you're about to become mayor or governor, an executive in a city or a state, nothing about safety, affordability, caring, pro-growth. All of us are going to do this together. This pitting of people against people is just unnecessary. It's not how you not how you win a race, but not how you start a term to be the mayor of the most important city, the biggest city, the most vital city in all of the world, certainly the United States, and I would argue all of the world. I hope he's able to figure this out. Now, I will remind everybody, We have two mayors in this country. Just a year ago, people talked about these cities as being irretrievably perhaps too far to the left. And I'm a Democrat, not a socialist. Philadelphia elected a woman named Cheryl Parker, who decided to go after criminals, decided to ensure that we prosecuted those. And there's a guy out there in San Francisco named Daniel Lurie, who's decided he's going to work with President Trump on issues that really matter and impact the city. That's the direction my party's going in the future.
Well, Mamdani doesn't talk about safety because he thinks crime and prison are social constructs. So, all right, coming up, using the term illegal aliens is now racist.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.